Hello and welcome. I'm Leigh-Ann Gerrans and you're watching W News Extra, broadcasting live from the Al Arabiya headquarters. These are our top stories. Netanyahu will meet Donald Trump at the White House next Monday as the president suggests a Gaza ceasefire deal could be reached within a week. The US president visits Alligator Alcatraz, the migrant detention center in Florida surrounded by swamp-dwelling reptiles. And Al Hilal's historic win, the Saudi side glide through to the quarterfinals of the Club World Cup after knocking out Manchester City. Now, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will meet US President Donald Trump in Washington next Monday. That's according to US officials. President Trump has suggested a possible ceasefire in Gaza could be reached within a week. It comes as Israeli planes and tanks struck Gaza on Tuesday, destroying homes and forcing residents to evacuate. Local health authorities claim 20 people were killed in the latest attacks. To discuss this and all of today's stories, I'm joined by Dubai 92 presenter Jono and Al Arabiya senior presenter Rawia Alami. Jono, let's start with you. So what more do we know about this visit between President Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu, of course, scheduled for Monday at the White House?
Yeah, so we know when, and we know probably what the agenda is going to be as well, and multiple sources have said that it is moving ahead. So we know this visit is going to happen, and it is going to be at the White House. Now, what is on the agenda is, I think, what everyone's thinking about right now. What are they going to talk about? What are they going to be discussing? And the first thing, and one of the most important things that we've heard in the last 24 hours, the ceasefire in Gaza. Trump has said and emphasised towards working on that ceasefire. He took to Truth Social to say, make the deal in Gaza, get the ceasefire in Gaza could be reached very soon, get the hostages back, was what he said on Truth Social. So that hostage release is obviously high in the list of priorities for Trump going into this meeting as well. And there's the regional security. There's the wider picture here of the issues like Iran, of Syria, of the post-Iran war diplomacy that has to be done as well. So that peace agreement that is on the table for Iran is also going to be high on the list of priorities. There's a lot of people who are already there in Washington in a precursor to that, and I know Rawia's got details on that as well. We do know there's other people who are part of there. It's the third trip that Netanyahu's made to meet Trump as well, and this time around Trump is going to be pushing the thumb a little bit harder, I think would be safe to say. We haven't heard much from Gaza in the last couple of weeks. Obviously, the shift in the attention has been focused very much on the Iranian crisis, which was taking place. But 60 Palestinians killed on Monday alone in Gaza means that it's back again. It's the heaviest attack that we've seen in weeks. So yes, Netanyahu's going, and yes, the stakes are very, very high. Ceasefire deal, hostages, Iran, Syria, the list goes on. But certainly it'll be a regional discussion that'll be held.
And it's interesting because Donald Trump was talking about this today when he was in Florida. He said the situations in Gaza and Iran will be discussed when he meets Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He also told reporters that he would be very firm with him on the need for a speedy Gaza ceasefire. So I guess that's a question, Rawia. You know, another meeting, third time to the White House. We're seeing no let-up in Gaza at the moment. Is this actually going to progress towards a ceasefire? Lots of talk about it.
We all hope so, of course. It's definitely seen as a significant opportunity to get the deal done and make progress towards this ceasefire. But let's look at the facts, because that's the success of such talks in reaching a ceasefire is definitely not guaranteed. First of all, President Trump is definitely eager, as you said, and he said he will be firm. He is putting some pressure on Netanyahu and on the Israeli government because he sees that if he secures this ceasefire, he will see it as a major foreign policy win or achievement for him. He also said that he was hoping that they will reach such a ceasefire within a week. But also, we also have senior Israeli officials, including the Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer, who has already traveled to the US. He has already been laying the ground for Netanyahu's visit. And that, I think, signals some seriousness on the part of the Israelis. But there are a few obstacles as well. Now, you have divisions, deep divisions within the Israeli government. You have voices that are completely against a ceasefire and ending the war, like Ben Gvir and Smotrich. And also you have Hamas. Hamas has definitely signaled its willingness to release the hostages if the war ends, but it definitely refuses to disarm, and that is one of Israel's preconditions to have a ceasefire. So it's not guaranteed, but if Trump pressures Netanyahu, and he also probably offers some incentives like continued backing for Israel on the Iran issue, and also normalizing relations with other Arab states, then maybe it will materialize.
And that's what I think. I think that's what Trump wants going into this as well, is that you now have a better hand of cards to play because of the fact that you've now supported Israel on an attack on Iranian soil.
So you have more leverage.
You will have leverage. You now say, you scratch my back, I scratch yours.
I do wonder, though, how much leverage Trump has over Netanyahu, and that's a question that I've asked many analysts, and I think a lot of people want to know the answer to. You know, how much pressure can Donald Trump put on Benjamin Netanyahu to ensure the ceasefire goes through? And we know that when he called the ceasefire to take effect between Israel and Iran, as soon as that was shaken, he was outspoken about Netanyahu and wanted him to get in line. So it'll be really interesting to see how the relationship between the two men shakes out.
To be honest, there's no way to tell, because in the past, Israel had the backing of the US, of President Trump throughout the war, at least since President Trump took office. And you know, President Trump did exert some pressure on the Israeli government, on Netanyahu, to get a ceasefire deal done, but nothing came out of it. So,
but I do think after something like what we saw
Iran,
in the
yes, there's more
happened,
leverage.
I think you then go in and say, you do require the US, and we saw that with the bunker buster bombs that we discussed in advance of them being used on this show. You now know that the US is required, and Israel needs the US to be able to go in. It doesn't have it has an arsenal of weaponry, but it doesn't have the arsenal of weaponry required to take down and nuclear de-arm Iran, and that was what was important. So I would think that now he's probably going in slightly at a better leverage level, and certainly knowing that he's going in with that Gaza needs a ceasefire now as his top line. I'd be optimistic that that would be something that would be achieved.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, yeah, absolutely. But I want to speak a little bit more about the humanitarian situation that we are seeing in Gaza. And we do know that the Israel military has said today that it has expanded its operations in Gaza. And of course, this comes after the fact that Donald Trump is calling for the ceasefire with Israel and Hamas. Earlier, I spoke to Dr. Ahmed Al Farra, head of pediatrics at Nasser Hospital in Gaza. I asked him if he had a message for the two leaders, and this is what he had to say.
My message is for President Donald Trump, please. Please stand with the humanity and morality and side with the right of the Palestinian people to live, to learn, to travel. We are not ink on paper. We are created by God. And we have the right to live, to learn, to receive medical health, to travel outside, to move as the people all over the world. This is our right. Again, you have my president, Donald Trump, you have to catch the point for make a ceasefire and stop that war, because I'm afraid that we'll reach the point for begging for that, because I'm afraid that we will reach a critical point about something happening for these innocent people, that the history and the international law will judge everyone against what's happening in Gaza nowadays.
Jono, I had a conversation with the doctor earlier, just absolutely harrowing about the medical situation in Gaza, the starvation, the malnutrition, you know, the stories we've been hearing time and time again. But 170 charities are calling for that controversial Israeli and US-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, the GHF, to be shut down. Remind us why this has just been so controversial.
Let me give you some of the figures on this, because it's shocking to hear this. 500 Palestinians have been killed queuing up for aid here. 4,200 have been injured. They're trying to get help for themselves, help for their families, and troops have been, and this is reported, routinely opening fire on unarmed civilians who are making their way to try and get assistance or try and get aid. There are just a handful of these access points. Previously, it was 400 UN-backed community distribution points, which was the plan. This was what we could have stuck to. This is what we could have had. The UN would have had 400 distribution points in there. You have 4 heavily controlled, military-secured hubs, which are distributing aid, in inverted commas, because it's really difficult.
3 in the south, 1 in the middle of Gaza, and nothing in the north.
Where there is zero medical aid right now, and there's zero assistance for the people who are in the north.
And people are desperate.
They're desperate. It's been described, and this is many. Oxfam have said this, Amnesty International, UN have all said that this is a death trap and a violation of humanitarian norms. The people who are getting through are getting minimal aid, and I mean minimal aid. We're hearing stories of people not having bare necessities to survive, babies who are dying from malnutrition. So we're at that level of an issue now that it needs to be, we need an intervention here. So this is why it's been so controversial.
And it's interesting because I asked the doctor just that, because there have been lots of reports that there's no baby formula, they aren't bringing it in on aid trucks. And he said to me that the malnutrition amongst the babies is absolutely critical. He said he didn't believe that in his whole career he would witness something at this level.
They're expecting thousands to die because of the lack of baby formula in Gaza. And also there's a new disaster now. There's a spread of meningitis amongst children as well. And we have to bear in mind that we are dealing or talking about a completely collapsed medical system throughout Gaza, especially in the north, which won't be able to deal with such an outbreak.
No, and how could you when you're so limited on your resources? You have 4 control centres that are looking after everything. The GHF has been controversial since the get-go. They have been US-backed, and there's $30 million US, which has been put behind this as well. They've been Israeli-backed. The issue is the UN obviously have a much better product. It is their expertise. It's their field. They know what they're doing. If they were allowed in there, this would not be, it would still be a crisis, but it wouldn't be as big a crisis. It's a private company that are operating these 4 hubs. That's what the GHF currently is. It's a private operated US-owned company.
And we shouldn't forget also that even just last week, the Israeli soldiers told Haaretz, which is a leftist newspaper and media outlet in Israel, that they received actual orders to shoot at civilians gathering at these aid distribution points.
But the GHF today has actually come out and softened its guidance on controlling these sites, because some people speculate because of the outrage at what's been happening every single day. So there has been some change. They've come out saying, you know, disagreeing with the fact that it's intentional killing, but we are seeing a change in their stance too, which is very interesting. But I just wonder about the ceasefire. We're speaking about the lack of aid. We're speaking about the lack of baby formula. We're speaking about 4 distribution points. I mean, a ceasefire, is it actually going to help? Or the reality on the ground is people are still going to be struggling?
I think as long as there is no aid, enough aid, let's say, it's not just a few trucks of aid, enough aid entering Gaza, even with a ceasefire, the situation is not going to be much better. It's not going to improve that much. There has to be, all borders should be opened, aid should flow freely, enough aid, and we're talking about thousands, but basically what Gaza needs or did actually consume of aid before the war were thousands of truckloads of aid. Not just a few, you know, that you can count on your fingers or a few tens. That's not going to solve the problem.
Hamas, obviously, the issue with the reason why we have the GHF is that Hamas initially had been portrayed to be controlling the aid in the first place. Hamas have now said, look, we actually haven't been holding back the aid, so flood the aid in. We won't hold it back. We won't commandeer it in advance to use it for our betterment. And there's been investigations, independent investigations done that says, well, actually, Hamas, there's no evidence that Hamas were channeling that for themselves or diverting aid in any way, be that investigation true or false or otherwise. There has to be a way, and as you said, Rawia, if you can flood the aid into the country and have the UN control it or otherwise, we'll solve a problem. It will not solve it overnight, and we are months away from this humanitarian crisis being over, regardless of when the ceasefire is signed.
And also regardless of the fact that the medical centres and the whole situation there has completely collapsed. It's years and years of rebuilding and getting things back into a state that is actually functioning again. So it seems that a ceasefire will be a great achievement, but then it's a long way off.
It's a good start.
But it needs to be, and that again comes into the chat that happens in the White House. You have to wonder if that's going to be part of the conversation. Can we get Doctors Without Borders? Can Médecins Sans Frontières get in there and do their work as well? Can people go to actually help? Because without the UN on ground, boots on the ground in Gaza, I don't think much is going to be achieved, unfortunately. Ceasefire or not, we'll be waiting a very long time to turn over children who are starving, and day by day they're dropping half their body weight. I believe when we discussed this a while ago, half their body weight from admission to the hospital. It's a long time to turn around something.
And a lot
like
of them are just basically hopeless cases by now.
Yeah.
That even if they get aid,
it's too late for a lot.
That's not going to save them, yes, unfortunately.
And I think that a lot of people are going to be watching on Monday to see this meeting between Trump and Netanyahu and really hoping there is movement between a ceasefire between Hamas and Israel. Thank you so much for your thoughts on that. Let's move on to another story. President Trump has attended the official opening of Alligator Alcatraz today, a migrant detention center built on a Florida swamp. The new facility, located on an abandoned airfield in the Everglades National Park, is home to around 200,000 alligators, which can grow up to 15 feet long. Earlier, Trump told reporters immigrants held there will have to learn how to dodge the alligators if they do try to escape. Take a listen.
I guess that's the concept. This is not a nice business. I guess that's the concept. If the snakes are fast, but alligators are, we're going to teach them how to run away from an alligator, okay? If they escape prison, how to run away. Don't run in a straight line. Run like this. And you know what? Your chances go up about 1%, okay? Not a good thing.
All right, Jono. Nothing like a bit of advice.
Do you know how to deal with alligators?
Yes.
I don't.
Question.
Not many are experts.
It's good that you're not there.
And it's bad news for the 5,000 people who are going to call this place home, be it somewhat temporarily. Let me tell you a bit about Alligator Alcatraz and what it is. It is a migrant detention facility. It's in the Everglades, which is in Florida as well. And this is officially open now. So this is not a pipeline dream. This is something that has been knocked up quite quickly, actually, as a building. And
About
the idea,
8 days.
About 8 days, which is pretty impressive for what it is. The entire isolated airstrip surrounded by not just alligators, he mentioned snakes as well, pythons and other wildlife as well. 5,000 migrants will be housed there while they're waiting for their deportation or whatever the case may be at the end of their case. It's been described by the White House as a one road in, one flight out, and natural and otherwise amazing security and deterrence to stop people from getting out. What has been built here is effectively a ICE detention centre, but that is so remote and that is so dangerous to try and escape from. It is effectively like Alcatraz. You are taking your life into your own hands if you try and get out of there. And migrants will be kept there while this is being ironed out through the courts. Congress and there's been a couple of people who've said it's inhumane. There's Native American tribes who've come to the fore, and there's civil rights groups who've said this is actually not the place where we need to be detaining people who are waiting for deportation, and we need to have something else. There's also a construction of this that was tried to be halted in the first place, but it's gone ahead regardless, and be it temporary or otherwise. 5,000 people from the Florida area alone will be using this as a detention centre.
And it's quite interesting because it's also the environmentalists who have been demonstrating outside. They were there today as Donald Trump arrived, obviously met by the Florida governor, Ron DeSantis. This was his brainchild. He was the person who came up with this. And as we are saying, what are these lawsuits going to do? It's gone through anyway.
Yeah.
You know, the environmental impact, he said it's not going to have any impact. And they've built, and, you know, you can see a tour of it. They've built these tents. It's been built very quickly. But it just seems to be that it's, okay, we know it's been built quick, we know who it's been funded by, but it's still not cheap, and it's
not
still
cheap at all.
expensive to house people, to look after them. Okay, it might be
house
cheap.
people, but this is a really good point. Housing, we're talking about, they're going to put them up in FEMA, which is the Federal Emergency Management Agency, trailers and soft-sided tents, not in concrete buildings. And the cost is really high. We're talking about $450 million per year to run it. That, of course, includes operational costs, covering housing, security, utilities, etc. And that means it's $90,000 per detainee yearly. So the cost is quite high. There's a funding controversy as well because, some people, the opposers to this idea say that why do we need such detention centers? The ICE already detain migrants in local jails at a much lower cost. But we have to also bear in mind that there's also some controversy regarding the land where the airport is, basically, because we said that there's only one way out. You have to fly out of the area. Apparently that the Trump's administration acquired the land for $20 million, even though the local county authorities are saying that it is estimated at $190. So apparently they're expecting low cases also regarding this facility, and therefore they're expecting the costs to mount.
But then we might be saying all of this, but, you know, we said it's tents, we said it's FEMA and the US government who have helped set this up. So in many respects, it almost seems temporary. It doesn't seem that this is going to be a long-term plan. And I was speaking to somebody a little bit earlier, and they said this almost feels like a shotgun decision from the government because, you know, they need to get their campaign policies in place and detaining illegal aliens, as they're calling them. And that was one of their main policies.
Yeah.
And they don't have the ICE. Enough
No,
ICE
you don't have
officers
enough
to do
ICE
it.
officers, but you certainly can't detain them in jails either. And although it's cheaper, it's not practical. And US prisons already are kind of at breaking point when it comes to
It's
you
very
hear
crowded,
stories
they're
of a lot
very
of people
crowded,
overcrowding. The idea of this is that it's a stopgap solution. It's going to try and filter through at a rate of 5,000, and it can take anywhere from weeks to several months for somebody who's an illegal immigrant to be deported. So it may be seen as somewhat of a stopgap. The issue here is that I feel like perhaps they will need to expand upon it and make it bigger. 5,000 is the capacity. If you look at Florida alone, 772,000 illegal immigrants. So if they and you say that they're going to rush it through and push the illegal immigrants through at an exponential rate, unheard of before, of 5,000 every single week, it will still take 3 years to clear the backlog of illegal immigrants in Florida. He's promised this in the pre-election. He said he will clear out immigrants. He is doing what he promised, and to build this is what he needed to do.
And it also comes at a cost. So it's $450 million per year. So if it's going to take 3 years, you can do the maths.
Yeah,
basically.
it's going to be expensive for sure.
But Ron DeSantis, he did a walk around of the site on another news channel. And it's actually quite interesting because, like you say, a lot of money is going into this. And you can't just deport people. They have a right to have a lawyer. So they're going to have those facilities on site. It's a process to get people deported. And I think this is something that maybe the government is taking into account now. But Ron DeSantis also said that he hopes that other states take
the same.
The influence from Florida, or basically, you know, take the inspiration from what they're doing here, and we'll probably see more of these deportation facilities set up.
This is getting the headlines because of the fact that there's 200,000 odd alligators in the vicinity around, and not every state is going to have that as a little point that they can put and say, well, listen, our detention centre is surrounded by X, Y, and Z. It's unlikely it's going to be that volume of alligators. What he's done here in the administration is trying to save money on security costs by putting natural security in
And
place
not having to build a
otherwise.
parameter.
There's no parameter needed.
No,
the
there's no
parameter is
parameter
nature.
either.
And you take
But
a
what
risk.
if a hurricane basically hits
Florida's
the area?
hurricane prone, yeah.
Exactly.
And this
Florida
could be,
is.
and it's also extremely hot in the Everglades, and that's what a lot of people don't realise. Lots of aircon is needed. It's concrete floor. It was an old
I don't
runway.
believe comfort is part of I don't think comfort is part of the modus operandi for the entire administration to say we'll have them be very comfortable. If that was the case, they'd take hotels and put them in 4 or 5
Exactly.
star
They're
hotels.
putting them in tents, and
This
we're talking
is-
about the heat that you
But
got
like
in the
we
area.
say, at the end of the day, this was Donald Trump's main campaign policy.
Yep.
And the people who voted for Donald Trump are absolutely 100% behind this
We're 7
idea.
months in and he's actioning this, and we saw this. Again, more ICE agents are needed. I think in total in the immigration office, 20,000 people are working there, but that's between admin staff and everything else. People who are out there actually
Yeah.
making and actioning these detentions, I think is around 4,000.
7,000.
7,000. So it's a fraction of what's actually
Yeah.
working for the department. They need to increase that number far more. And then we are going to see more of these detention centres. They may not all be like this, but we're going to
Not
need more
all
of them.
surrounded by alligators, obviously.
No, but I don't think they're going to be lap of luxury either. I think we're going to see a lot more of these required by ICE in order to be able to expedite the process a bit quicker.
But like we said, this was a really headline-grabbing story because of the location it is. But once again, it's 5,000, and there's so much more to go. So that's such an
the
interesting...
name also was very catchy as well.
Alligator Alcatraz.
Absolutely.
He did say that snakes move quickly, but a python actually doesn't, Donald Trump, just in case you were wondering. Thanks for your thoughts on that. Let's move on now. And China says it's ready to come to the table to talk with the US about trade policy at the WTO. That's according to a senior delegate at China's mission to the body. He added it would include discussions on tariffs and subsidies seen by Washington as obstacles to reforming the World Trade Organization. Patrick Fock has the details.
China has heard every word the US has said at the WTO about its trade practices. That's according to a senior Chinese delegate speaking on the condition of anonymity, and a Reuters news report who also said that China's open to discussing everything from tariffs to industrial policy, even the benefits it's granted as a result of its status as a developing nation. That in particular is a major sticking point. Washington says there can be no meaningful reform at the World Trade Organization unless China and other major economies give up special privileges known as special and differential treatment, or SDTs. China and Saudi Arabia are among major economies that self-identify as developing nations. That allows them to take advantage of things like being able to set higher tariffs against other countries, as well as using subsidies to support some of its industries. Now, the delegate says that China's developing status is non-negotiable, despite the fact that China has now grown to become the second largest economy in the world. But they did say that it may be willing to forego some STTs in upcoming negotiations. That wouldn't be a first. It has done so in the past, particularly in areas of fisheries and domestic regulations, but it wasn't clear this time how far it might go. A former WTO spokesperson said that they doubted that China would give up all STT privileges, particularly in areas like agriculture. That's almost certainly going to be a problem as far as the US is concerned, because Washington doesn't believe that countries should be able to pick and choose STT privileges, and in particular wants China to renounce all these privileges altogether. Now, China is saying that it's open to discussion, it is open to level the playing field, but in return, it wants goodwill. It also says that it won't accept any attempt to change its economic system. The comments come, as we know, following months of tensions over tariffs between the world's two largest economies. It also comes after the US suspended funding to the World Trade Organization, and so the Trump administration has also threatened to pull out, severely undermining the body's role in global trade.
Now, it's been dubbed the match of this season. On Monday night, Saudi Arabia side Al Hilal shot to victory in the Club World Cup with a 4-3 win over Manchester City in Orlando, knocking Pep Guardiola's side out of the tournament. Al Hilal now progress to the quarter-finals. Okay, Rawia, this has been an absolutely incredible win.
Absolutely incredible, that is for sure. Actually, it was called or described in Arab, not just Saudi media, in Arab media as one of the biggest wins in football history, not only second to the Saudi national team winning against Argentina during the last World Cup. But we have to take a few things into consideration. First of all, the opposing team was Man City. Man City is a big team. If we just skip last season, it was called one of the strongest teams in the world and in Europe and in England for at least the past 5 years. And also, this is the first time an Asian, not even an Arab, an Asian team wins against a European team in a FIFA competition, breaking a 20-game winless streak. Now, there were a lot of highlights, quite honestly.
These stats, Rawia. What have you been up to? Hey.
No, seriously, I'm very proud, to be honest. I'm very proud. Now, the strategy was amazing because they did a lot of counter-attacking, not just basically settling for defense. Yassine Bono, the Moroccan international goalkeeper, also played amazingly. He was described by the coach, by the way, the coach of Al Hilal, who's an Italian international player. His name Inzaghi. He was described by him, or called out as just an amazing performance.
But he didn't get man of the match. The striker did, which is normally the case. I always feel a little bit sorry for the goalkeeper.
He did the hard work in this
He did
game.
the hard work, yeah. And I spoke to a sports journalist earlier and said he just did so many saves, about 8 or 9. I said it kind of is his job, isn't it?
But to do that
but
volume
it's
is
very
pretty good.
hard. It's
pretty
very
impressive.
hard. Yes,
That's
especially if you're playing against a team like Man City. But I just want to say one final thing. In my opinion, to be honest, this is absolutely a validation of Saudi investment in football, and that is actually what the BBC and CNN described the situation, described this win to be. Now, if since the start of the Saudi sports investment project, there was a lot of voices that were raised saying that, accusing this vision of being exaggerated and cash flashing. But I think this win really makes or shows how wrong these opinions were. And also, if we were talking about soft power earlier, that this is absolutely the definition of soft power. Not one sports news outlet or newspaper or news channel did not talk about Saudi Arabia and about Al Hilal's win. And if we look at basically other examples, if we look at South Korea's K-pop culture, this is an example of soft power. In the Arab world, the Turkish drama has become a huge sort of tool of soft power. And I think that's exactly what the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is doing in sports.
I mean, absolutely phenomenal. As I did say earlier, I spoke to sports journalist Joe Morrison about how the Saudi League now compares, as Rawia was saying, to others around the world. And here's what he had to say.
I mean, better than the MLS? Absolutely. Which is obviously the American league for those watching who may not know. But it's certainly made a lot of people sit up and take notice. Is it better than the Premier League, for example, or La Liga? No, not quite, not yet. Ronaldo has said it's up there, it's in the top 5 leagues in the world. And I don't think Ronaldo's far away with that comment.
Jono, it's incredible, as Rawia was saying, an absolute phenomenal win. I mean, we can't ever express how exciting it is for the Saudi club.
What a success story.
Yeah.
Amazing success story.
It's amazing.
And then you see them progress even further now again. They'll go on to the quarterfinals. They'll take on the Brazilian giants Fluminense, which, again, we're seeing what can it be achieved if you really invest into an industry, especially sports industry as well. And now 2023 to 2024, Al Hilal have had 34 straight wins as well across all their competitions, and there's been major investment and intellectually and otherwise into this as an industry, and I think that's what's made it good. 2019 and 2021 AFC Champion League winners again, cementing them as Asia's elite team, and I think it's amazing to see. We really have something to be proud of when we look at this team and say, wow, we're world players.
And I always get excited by this, where a big team from somewhere like Saudi or anywhere in the world, Al Hilal, they make such an amazing movement in the sports world. It inspires the grassroots.
Exactly.
And that's always something that I love to see. You know, now so many young boys and girls are going to just want to play football, and it's going to get them out. Yeah, and be inspired. And there's going to be new stars, like you said, the goalkeeper. What an amazing achievement, the striker. You know, I think the whole ecosystem just comes together when something big like this happens.
Everyone loves a story whereby you started from nothing and then you get to here.
Absolutely.
And I mean, the team's been around since 1957. They're not starting from nowhere, but they were the underdog, and now they're not anymore. And I think that in itself is something that you got to just say, well done. That's a proud
What's
achievement.
the start?
Definitely.
It started from the bottom. Now we're here.
Yeah, I think I think the rest of the lyrics are unsuitable for.
Oh, okay. I don't know the rest of the lyrics. Moving on, and finally we've reached that point in the show where Rawia and Jono, they've come up with a couple of quirky stories of the day. And Rawia, yours is just such an achievement.
Right.
It's about a man who broke 4 world records with his stacking skills.
Right.
Amazing.
Absolutely amazing. He's called the card architect, apparently. And as you said, he broke 4 Guinness World Records in a matter of days. Now, the first world record, and his name, by the way, is Tian Rui, I think. He broke his first Guinness World Record about 3 years ago when he made a 27-layer tower to claim the title for the tallest house of cards built in 1 hour. Just 1 hour. But then after that, he lost that title. He reclaimed it in April with 32 layers, not 27 this time. And then just a few days earlier, he had claimed the title of the tallest house of cards built in 8 hours, managing to construct a 62-layer tower. Now, just recently, once his card titles were claimed, he turned his attention to Jenga blocks. And this is the newest, basically, Guinness World Record, because he broke the record for the most Jenga blocks stacked on one vertical, imagine, one standing vertical Jenga block. And obviously, he stacked 3,149 Jenga blocks.
And we're just seeing those pictures. I don't know about you, Jono. Would you have the patience?
No, because he's done it, like, I didn't understand what you'd said until you explained it, and I looked at it. He's gone from one block at the bottom, and it's an inverted pyramid is what he's built, which is very impressive.
Yeah,
like, that in itself.
Well, he is an architect, obviously.
Yeah, but I mean, it would fall down twice, and you'd think, I'm done with this, bye-bye, I'm finished with the record. It just seems, it's one of the more unachievable records, I think. We need to dial it back a bit and make it more of an achievable record to try and... we're not going to break this guy's one. So I think we need to bring Leigh-Ann back to her hopefully achievable record.
We've discussed this before on the show, haven't we, about breaking a world record. Jono's tried to break about 100, broken none. So sad times for him, you know. And then he said, what would yours be? And mine would be running 100 metres in high heels.
Are you sure you can do that?
No, absolutely not.
How long would it take you to do it? Just on a guess.
Oh, gosh, it would take me a really long time. I'm not very...
Depends on the shoes,
Yeah, it depends on the shoes. Have to be wedges.
Right, so I don't know if it's wedges or not, but the high heel run, the record for the 100 metres, 12.42 seconds.
No way.
I couldn't.
I think Usain Bolt is probably doing that record with high heel time.
I wouldn't even try.
So the next one you could attempt, and this is the Jaffa cake one, which is surprisingly difficult to do, is to eat, how long to eat 100 Jaffa cakes, and the record is 3 minutes. So if you do 3 minutes, 100 Jaffa cakes.
But then they're so dry. It's like...
no water.
It's that technique with no water, isn't it? But I think this guy, when I look at this guy, I just feel really envious of his patience and his time and skills.
Maybe he's got no job.
Maybe he's got no life. Anyway, Jono, your story is a story that I'm just obviously in love with because I absolutely love tennis. Wimbledon is just like the world to me every time it comes round. And certain foods are now being banned at Wimbledon. Yeah,
well, double-edged sword for you in this one because there's all of the joy of having Wimbledon in there, Leigh-Ann, and then all of the joy of something vegan in there as well.
Yes, I heard this.
It's something that's been banned, and this is the sad news. Avocados have been banned from Wimbledon for this year. It's no longer part of the food offering. Not just that, but it's part of the sustainability efforts. They've also banned salmon, smoked salmon, from the menu as well. Instead, avocados are being replaced by crushed peas, which is just not really.
No,
it's
not the same.
It's a poor man's avocado.
Not the same.
Yeah.
The real reason behind it, though, which I'll get into in a second, makes sense, but the tournament is pushing for more plant-based options. So instead of strawberries and regular cream, as in dairy-based, we're now opting for plant-based cream. So for a vegan, great news for you. On your traditional strawberries and cream, and if you like something that's a little bit less eco-friendly, you can still get the traditional cream. The reason they're doing this is there is a real concern for the environmental concerns about mass avocado farming, which I was unaware was an issue. But there is a real a concern for the ecosystem and the landscape of where these are actually being farmed in the first place. So Wimbledon's decided to kind of go somewhat, try and do a carbon offset and say, we're not going to do avocados.
Green gold is what avocados are called in the world because they are so
very expensive.
in demand and they're very expensive, and it became like a really big thing, didn't
They're
it?
extremely healthy.
Oh, they're so healthy.
Good fat.
Good fat,
Yeah,
healthy
good fats, and we're encouraged
But,
to consume them.
But, you know, I just always find it absolutely fascinating that big events like this try to be more sustainable. And I wonder, in the long run, how much it actually benefits people who are there and how much, you know, they actually save from this. So it'll be an interesting
Well,
experiment.
how much people care as well. And we see this with Glastonbury as well, which happens every year. They look at a new sustainability initiative at Glastonbury as well, where they try and say, right, let's make things a little bit more environmentally friendly.
Water bottles.
Water
all of
bottles.
them.
Make sure that the tents get recycled, whatever it is. Everything right down to the very last carton that's used there is made sure to be recyclable as well. But you have to wonder, how much do people really, at the end of the day, care or mind? I mean, for me, certainly, I'm okay with the cream. I'm lactose intolerant. Plant-based cream, no problem.
I'm vegan. I'm
Happy
there for
days.
it, yeah.
Like, I'm
but
fine with
you're
that.
not going to take the crushed peas.
I'm not
over
having
the-
crushed peas,
yeah,
but
over
then
the
again, I've never
avocados.
gone in and think, I'm just going to watch a bit of tennis and have a bit of avocado. I don't know. I didn't know it was a thing until today.
I didn't know it was offered.
You didn't know it was offered. I didn't know
In the
smoked
first
salmon and
place.
avocado was on a hot summer's day. Smoked salmon and avocado does not sound like the go-to.
And ice cream, I think.
Yeah.
would be
They've always
much
got
better.
the ice cream.
Frozen yogurt.
Yeah, they got the ice cream trucks popped around. So, you know, they had the caravans there, and there's some other trucks that we can't mention that are on Headman Hill in case it's sunny and you need to hydrate. But there's a lot happening at Wimbledon. Best time of year in London, I think.
There's been big wins at Wimbledon as well,
Has
right?
been a big win. Leigh-Ann Gerrans can report. Jack Draper, British guy, young, 24. How can I say?
Good looking.
World number 4, good looking. He is through. He won his match day, which is very exciting. And, you know, there's a lot of talent in the draw. Young talent we're seeing coming up.
They play tennis well as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's very good looking, but that's not the only reason that, you know, I'm mentioning him. Jack Draper to win, I think. You know, get out of Vogue
Congratulations
magazine,
anyways.
get on the tennis court, make me proud. So thanks to today's guests, Dubai 92 presenter Jono Hayes and Al Arabiya senior presenter Rawia Alami. And that's all from us on W News Extra. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and, of course, follow us on X. G&T with Tom Burgess-Watson is coming up next. Goodbye and thank you.